Quick note at the top of the video today. I had to re-record this and re-upload it. There was an error in my math on the spreadsheet when I originally posted this video this morning that I missed. I was told there would be no math. So that has been fixed, re-recorded, and we are re-uploading it now. Let's go ahead and get into it. What is going on, YouTube people? Today, we are going to talk about the true cost of grading. In yesterday's video, we discussed the margins, the gap, the shrinkage, if you will, on the price of a raw card versus the premium of a PSA 10, specifically on ultra modern new releases. Before, it used to be 3x-ish. Now, it's pretty much 2x. And the bigger problem is that raw is now outselling PSA 9. So you lose on a PSA 9. Before, back in the day, you used to actually be able to slightly break even, maybe even make a slight profit on a PSA 9. Nothing major, but it wouldn't kill you. It would be annoying, but it wouldn't like absolutely murder you. But you'd at least like get your grading feedback out of it typically. That on ultra modern, pack fresh stuff, brand new releases, seems to be no longer the case. We looked at a bunch of different examples yesterday of stuff from 2023. Victor Silver, that's what I have up on the screen now. CJ Stroud Silver, and a handful of others. Go back and check out yesterday's video if you missed it, because that kind of gives you the groundwork for what we're going to talk about today. So, once again, up on the screen, we have the Victor Silver Prism. PSA 10 goes for about $1,000. Raw, going for just a skosh under 500. We're just going to call it 500 to keep the math simple. PSA 9 goes for $400. Yikes. Yikes. Let's pull up the old spreadsheet. All right, we got our spreadsheet pulled up here. We're going to look at this two different ways. If you wanted to go out and you wanted to buy raw to grade, so you're going to go out, you're going to purchase the card specifically for the purposes of getting it graded to flip it. Part two is, and we'll be kind of talking about both at the same time. The other thing here is if you pack pull it, you went and bought a blaster, $20, $25, maybe you bought one hanger pack for $15 or whatever they are, and you pulled a Victor Silver. What are you doing with it? Are you selling it raw or are you grading it? Let's go ahead and break this down. We're going to look at both PSA and SGC. PSA and SGC, regardless, it's going to cost you $8 to ship it there. Grading fees, PSA, it's going to be about $75 for regular service. SGC, it'll be $15 for just their standard service. They don't have tiered services. Return shipping, I assumed about $35. I know PSA's is $35. I assume SGC's is something similar, but maybe you could fudge those numbers $5 or $10 one way or the other there. I did not include Beckett here, but basically Beckett, you would tack on $20 on top of SGC's. It's a $35 grading fee with subgrades to get it back in similar time to what PSA regular service and SGC service is running at. You could save a little bit of money and send it at the slower speed, but it would take you a couple months to get it back. With this, PSA regular service is running at about 2 weeks. SGC is running at about 3 weeks, 15 business days, give or take. So the turnaround times on this are fairly comparable to each other. All right. So you acquired this card. You either pack pulled it or you bought it raw because you wanted to upgrade it. It looked clean. You saw it at a show. You decide to send it to PSA. Let's break down these numbers because I think they're going to surprise you a little bit. It gets a PSA 10. You nailed it. Now you got to sell it. For the purposes of this, you're selling it on eBay. That's where most people end up selling their cards. Whether you use eBay or not, you're going to have some sort of selling fee associated with it. You're either going to take a discount to sell it not on eBay, or you're just going to sell it on eBay. So generally, eBay runs about a 13% fee, give or take. We're not going to sweat promoted listings and all that nonsense. We're just going to keep this simple. So you get that PSA 10, sells for $1,000. You sell it for $1,000. You were feeling great. You were feeling fantastic. $130 in selling fees. $118 in grading fees based off the numbers above, the shipping to and from and the grading fee itself. That's $200 and basically $50 in expenses. Means you got $750 in your pocket. If you bought the card for $500, you made a $250 profit-ish. If you pack pulled it, you're up $750. Kinda. I'll get to the kinda in a second, because remember, you could sell it raw. You don't have to grade it. If you sell it raw, it goes for $500, $65 in grading fees, $65 in selling fees, no grading fees. You net out $435. So extra $252 because you sent it in for grading. Now, what happens if you get a 9? PSA 9 sell for $400. Selling expenses, $50-ish. Grading expenses stays the same, $118. $170 into the card to send it off to get a PSA 9. That means you end up with $230 in your pocket. If you bought the card for $500, now you're in the hole $270. If you pack pulled it, you could have sold it raw for $435 and not messed around. But you wanted to send it to PSA. You wanted to send it to get graded. That's what everybody does. Now you only made $230 instead of $435. Now, you could have made $750. You could have hit the 10. Absolutely could have. Let's use the same example, and let's say you send it to SGC. SGC 10 goes for about $750. So you have $97 in selling fees in this instance, $58 in grading fees. So you save on the grading fees, but the card sells for less. So you're out of pocket $155 to send it off to grading and get it back. After selling fees, $595. If you bought it raw, you're up $95. If you pack pulled it, you're up about $600, $595. If it gets a 9, I have this asterisk because there's only been one SGC 9 sale, and it was a couple of weeks ago for $575. I'm assuming if that card's resold again today, that it would be closer to the PSA 9 comp. So I'm just assuming a PSA 9 comp for an SGC comp. Hate me if you want in the comments down below. Selling fees, $52. Grading expense, $58. You're out of pocket $110. You net out $290. So a $210 loss if you bought the card raw for $500 and decided to try to play the grading game. Or if you pack pulled it, you'd be up $290 instead of up $435. So those are the numbers. And I'm not doing this to try to scare you off from grading. Listen, I'm still going to send plenty of cards into grade. But the math has changed. And this is, I get the question all the time. Should I grade a card? Should I not grade a card? This is what you should be doing. Sit down and run the numbers. I've said it 1,000 times. Grading is a math equation. Punch everything in, and then you figure out what your risk tolerance is. There's no right or wrong answer here. There really isn't. Everyone's going to have a slightly different response for what they want to do. If it was me, I'm probably, right now, I think chasing ultra modern raw to grade is tricky, especially brand new product stuff. I think it's a little tricky. If you can get a good enough deal on it, go for it. But it's harder than it has ever been. If you pack pull something, I think the equation gets a little even trickier. If it's like week of release, you might be better off selling raw, because remember, you're going to get that premium first to market or early to market before the cards go down in value, just because of more supply hitting the market. It's what I just did with that Walker Jenkins gold auto that I hit out of 50. I sold that card raw on eBay for $500 versus sending it off to PSA. I think it was a borderline PSA 9 to 10. It had some roller markers on the front. They were a little bit more and slightly heavier than I would typically like to see. I didn't want to chance it. So I just took the $500 cash offer. So I netted out, whatever it is, $435 or whatever it ends up being by selling it raw on eBay. I'll let someone else roll the dice on grading it if they want to. Two factors there were it's the first week of release. I feel like I'm getting a premium for that card. If I send it off to get graded, by the time I get it back, there could be new comps on that card, or they're quite a bit lower. And then I end up just selling, if it does PSA 10, I end up just selling it for what I could have got it for raw. And then if it comes back a 9, I'm screwed. If you decide you want to grade it, then it comes down to your risk tolerance. For me, 95% of the time, I'm going to go the PSA route. If I'm going to risk taking a $210 loss with SGC if it gets a 9 versus a $95 profit if it gets a 10, on the PSA side, I'm risking $270 loss to get a $250 profit. That's a no-brainer. Now, SGC, I did not include a 9.5 here. That is a little bit of a variable. If you got an SGC 9.5, you're probably still going to lose. You're not breaking even with an SGC 9.5. You might get lucky and get full raw value for the card. So add $100 on top of it. So you lost $100 instead of $210. So that is an X factor in here that I did not factor in the SGC 9.5 of it all. I have a feeling an SGC 9.5 would probably sell closer to raw, because someone, I can tell you right now what's going to happen. You're going to sell that card to someone, they're going to crack it and send it to PSA. Would be my guess. That's how that's going to go down. Maybe you get a slight premium on a 9.5. I don't know. I didn't look to see if any have sold. I wanted to kind of compare apples to apples here as best as possible. So that's where we sit. If you pack pulled one of these, what are you doing? What are you doing? Those are the numbers. And obviously, this stuff's going to fluctuate and move all the time. This is just a snapshot moment to give you an idea of what you should be walking through to decide whether or not you want to grade a card. Now, there's a little bit more to it than that. Does the card look super clean? You're going to send it off and roll the dice, more likely. But if it's borderline, that's where things get tricky. That is where things get. As always, curious for your thoughts and comments down below. We'll catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.